Welcome to Business Beyond Borders, the go-to podcast for CPA firms seeking transformative insights. I'm your host, Laurence Whittam, and with each episode we'll uncover key insights, best practices, and invaluable resources tailored for CPAs. From trending strategies to diving deep into outsourcing and offshoring, our experts will help in all areas of your business. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Business Beyond Borders. So we're here today to talk a little bit of a second part as well, because I just talked to Terry the other day, which will have been released last week. But touching a little bit on the Citrin deal, but maybe digging into it a little bit further, but with keeping in mind that even though David used to be the COO, I'm sure there's plenty of stuff he can't talk about as well. So I'll be cautious of that, and you're welcome to share what you can share. What you can't share, just stop me if I ask something too detailed. So, but David, nice to have you on again.
Yeah, Laurence, great to see you again.
So, just to kick it off, can we get a bit about just your overall thoughts? I think it was everybody sort of was waiting on their toes to see what was going to happen, if it was going to happen, when it was going to happen, right, for this type of first turn, essentially. So, can you share sort of your overall thoughts, and again, is it as everybody thought as of right now from what we see?
Yeah. So what I'll say is, late 21, New Mountain comes in, Citrin decides to do the deal. I was there. I was part of the team getting the firm ready for, our next phase of growth. We had grown just exponentially over the 11 years I was there, getting us in the neighborhood of 350 million, 400 million, and New Mountain comes in. And listen, they told us flat out, we're at a 3 to 5 year holder. Everybody talked about what rollover equity was, but like you just said, everybody's waiting to see what was going to happen. And the way I put it in my perspective is, everything that was advertised happened. Massive growth with the influx of capital, massive opportunities for all the people, a turn that we were all waiting on. Who was going to be the next buyer? Is this a viable business plan? Obviously, Blackstone comes in and says, stamp of approval. This is obviously a viable plan. And, you've heard Phil Whitman talk about taking some chips off the table. So everybody with an ownership stake had the opportunity now to take some more cash out and roll into the new and next entity. So like I said, from my perspective, and I think from a lot of people's perspective within the firms, I still talk to a lot of people, everything that happened as advertised. No shocks, no, nothing other than, hey, okay, what we thought was going to happen happened.
Now, so talking to a lot of the team members and I'm sure partners and stuff that stayed there, right, during this sort of period of time over the past 3 years, like, what should other firms expect, right? Again, we see a lot of PE deals going on for the first time, and I think the first time we started to see it in the early days, like, I think sometimes there was maybe too much change that was put onto firms and it just didn't work out for a lot of cases, right? But now I see a lot of the private equity going about in a slightly different way and again, learning from the mistakes in the past, but there are changes, and I think firms need to expect change quite quickly. But what do you see was there an exorbitant amount of pressure from some partners where they're like, okay, we've done this 3 years, it's been worth it for the pay tag essentially at the end of it, but I'm done now, right? Or are they still raring to go for the next turn? Or what do you sort of see from some of the partners?
Oh, yeah. So I'll answer that from a couple of perspectives. From the Citrin side of things and from the disruption side of things, right? Everybody wants to know, how does it affect me? But listen, for the large majority of CPAs, whether that's partners, managers, directors, anybody really, there's no real disruption in the mere fact that you've got an outside investor. You're still working on the same clients. You're still doing the same work. the word opportunity is what comes up. I mean, it's portrayed as a growth driver, right? You get a whole bunch of capital behind you. You can expand your footprint, be it geographically, service lines, specialty consulting, whatever that may be, whatever you're going to invest in technology, and that's only to enhance your jobs. So if you take the case of a Citrin, the firm was born of and grew out of M&A, merging in many, many, many businesses. So there's a track record of successful M&A integrations. So when you get a new mountain, when you get a Blackstone coming in and they're going to, just put M&A on Uber growth track, which is what happened. Citrin doubled in size, basically, or even more after New Mountain came in. It's really the same playbook, and it just expands the opportunities of all of the folks within the firm, be it cross-selling to your client base, adding more value, additional services, additional geographical footprint, whatever the case may be. All of that took place. Now, as you mentioned, other private equity groups coming in, they may have a different model. There's brand independence. There's certain levels of operational independence. So to answer your question, the disruption's a little less maybe on some of those because they're really not changing anything. There's some roll-up structures that are in there. There's some consolidation of back office administrative support, which only helps solve some of the problems that these firms have. But, change is part of our world. So for somebody to say private equity is coming in, I don't like change, I think you got to dive a little deeper into that to see, where they're really coming from, because we're all dealing with change every day.
Yeah. Now, any shock from it being BlackRock, right? From that perspective, like, again, huge household name from that private equity standpoint, right? It's just, again, they're the ones that are the most well-known realistically, right? And again, it's compared to a lot of the other things going on, I think we've seen very large funds, very large PEs in the profession, but not necessarily household names, right? So were you a bit shocked that it was somebody like BlackRock stepping in, or?
Surprised is probably a word. I'm not sure I would use shocked because, like I said, this is just, the stamp of approval industry-wise that, PE's here to stay. This is a viable option. Big players are coming in. And as you know, it's not just private equity. There's sovereign pension funds that are making investments. There's wealth management, groups, family office groups. So obviously, with the CBIZ Markham transaction, you got public company space in there, although they've been around for a while. So there's many players. So I'm not shocked about who it is. I'm just maybe surprised at the size, and then the question I'm sure comes up is, okay, who's next after that? And I don't necessarily think, from my perspective, it has to be always a bigger player, right? There's plenty of PE firms large enough to handle a transaction of whatever size is going to be in the next 3 to 5 years on the growth of Citrin. But, there's also, IPO paths as well. So there's many different paths out there. And we're at the beginning of this. Yeah.
Now, what do you see for, let's say, the short-term future for, obviously, now there's a lot more firms that have gone through an acquisition, right, over the past 2 years, right? So now we're going to see, obviously, we've got Citrin, we've got the Eisners that were sort of earlier players in some cases, right, to it, and now we're seeing that turn happen. We're probably a year or two out from turns from a lot more of these organizations, right? And a lot of these PEs are rolling up multiple firms quite quickly, right? And some of them are keeping separate brands, some of them are rolling them up into one brand. What could we expect, right, with these ones that have numerous brands involved and haven't necessarily brought them all into one organization like Citrin in the next couple of years?
Yeah. So we're going to see every aspect of the options that are out there. So I think you're going to see some flips on some of the smaller groups that have acquired quite rapidly, right? We know of some players that have, gone from 0 to 150 million in 12, 14, 15 months. their thesis, if you will, was probably to get to a size of that or a little bit bigger, and and do another transaction. So you're going to see that. That's also going to play into, does that decentralized model work? Do the independent, do all the individual firms that have certain, operational and brand independence, does the turn still work for them? Does the new buyers think it works? But there's many different flavors. I talk to firms all the time, and I say, listen, don't just say, hey, I'm selling for the sake of selling. You've got to know what you want out of it down the road for your firm, your people, your partners, in the future for your clients. So when you do the research and you really get down to what you want, you'll find the right partner to do it with. And we're just going to see multiple transactions and more players enter the space.
So, and shifting gears a little bit towards, I know that you were heavily involved in like the offshore side of it and building the international team for Citrin, right? Now, do you believe that was, again, have you seen any change since they've been acquired, right? During that time, like in terms of, have you seen a drastic increase in the offshore team? Are you still in touch with those guys as well?
Yeah. So I would say there's, corresponding growth in the offshore theme to correspond with the size of the firm. But taking a step back, obviously, the firm saw the value, right, in having an offshore team, both from a multi-pronged approach, if you will. It was a relief valve, an insurance policy for not burning out staff, right? To retain staff and say, listen, if we need to offshore some hours here just to make the work-life balance a little better, that's what we're going to do. Obviously, there's a huge margin difference and a massive bottom line impact to utilizing that sort of stuff. But it's a balance, and I just think it's a corresponding growth that tied to the overall firm growth because it's a successful model for sure.
Now, out of interest, I mean, did you see when you were working on more of the first deal with New Mountain, like did you see any specific EBITDA type increases or anything when you were justifying it towards the outsourcing and the offshore side of things? And or was it just sort of, it had already been in place for a while, so it just sort of fell into place?
I think it was multi-pronged there as well. The value of doing it right to your bottom line increases your enterprise value, increases your EBITDA. That's a chicken and the egg kind of thing. I think firms that are ever thinking about doing a PE deal or even staying independent should utilize these tools to increase their own enterprise value and EBITDA. And then if they do that, obviously they're worth more to a private equity group coming in. But I mean, listen, we had been down the road with other groups, at least conversationally, and everybody knows that it was based on an EBITDA multiple, and you maximize that, you maximize the return on what you're going to get for the sale. So I mean, everybody's should be aware of that right now, and offshoring plays a huge piece in that. So, and then what about when we're talking about sort of preparing ourselves? Like, if a firm is now thinking about whether it's just getting involved in PE right now, whether it's getting involved even in a larger firm and rolling up in some case, I guess what strategic decision or thought should they be having to help prepare themselves just to get ready to even get into that type of deal and to be ready to, again, somewhat embrace it, right? That culture and that change culture that's going to start being impacted. Right. So I'll start with what type of firm are we talking about? If you're talking about a firm that's had good growth, both organically and inorganically, have done M&A transactions over the years, so they know what it's about. And if they're going into a model where the private equity group wants them to be, the base firm or the platform firm, and roll up a bunch of other firms underneath that, and they have experience doing that, they need to get themselves ready for that uber growth, be it technology stack, processes, efficiencies, offshoring, the ability to handle more hours coming in, recruiting, right? They need to bring in the talent that need to bring in. The other side of that coin.
For those that don't know, platform firm, right? Just explain platform firm, what that is, and sort of what key characteristics would even just make somebody eligible to be that platform firm.
Yeah,
really.
yeah. So you've got to be a solid firm, profitable firm. And like I said, you probably have to have a track record of M&A integrations. You have to know how to absorb different groups coming into your world, streamline process, commonality of technology utilization, et cetera. And then once the private equity calls you that platform firm, right, they'll then help with your now M&A strategy and roll all that up under your group there, right? And it could be hub and spoke. It could be you're the platform firm in this geography. There's another platform firm in another geography. So there's all different models out there.
Okay, cool. And then what about sort of future outlook when it comes to, let's go back to Citrin a little bit, right? So now we're seeing these new things happen, right? We've seen some go public. We've seen Citrin recently get acquired by BlackRock, right? What's next for these types of firms? Like what are the potential options for next for a Citrin, for example?
So listen, they're going to continue along the growth track, obviously, that they're on. What that means is acquisition of more talent, right? Top line talent, getting into specialized advisory services that maybe they don't have, or expanding groups that they do have, adding on ancillary businesses now, right? You've got the capital investment behind you to go forward. And again, it's all about expanding the suite of services to your client base. Now, on top of that, when you become a top 10 firm, a top 15 firm, you're different than a top 50 firm as far as the ability to gain a larger client base, clients that are more sophisticated, larger, international, that have varied needs. So when you get up into that tier of firms, you're talking, and you're in the conversation with bigger clients for sure.
Okay, perfect. So, I mean, is there anything else that you want to add, right, that you're seeing or that you think firms should look out for, right? Not just in the PE space, but even from now we know and we've seen so much entry with PE, right? If you want to be if you want to stay your own firm, right, you've got to change a little bit. So maybe just final thoughts there, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, so great point, Laurence. Whether you entertain a transaction with an outside investor, be it PE or any other type of investor, or stay on your own, listen, you have to plan for the future. A private equity backed firm is most likely going to be a competitor of yours in whatever space that you play in. I happen to be, as you know, part of the profit team here at Whittam Transition Advisors, and I talk to plenty of firms that say, listen, we don't want to entertain this, but okay, you've got to do certain things to stay competitive, to be more efficient. And if you do want to go down that road someday, you need to do certain things to make your firm more attractive from a financial statement. Increased enterprise value, as I said, increased EBITDA, so that you get the best deal possible. But we're also here to guide you through, what does this landscape look like? What does it look like for my firm? What's it going to be for my firm, my partners? How long do I have to stay on if I'm a senior partner? What opportunities are there for my younger partners or my up and coming all-star talent? You have to get ready for all of this, because you can't just stay isolated in a bubble, even if you don't want to deal with an outside investor.
Yeah, it's not just a flick a switch in terms of, okay, we're ready now, let's go. It's generally a lot, unless you want to do it incorrectly, right? Yeah. You can make decisions quite abruptly and make a bad decision. So it's better to be planned out and do it properly. So. Well,
that's it. It's a big decision, and pretty much it's going to be a one decision for you, right? Who do you go with as far as an investor into your firm? You better do it right.
Yeah. No, cool. Appreciate it, Dave. And again, it's wanted to just cover a little bit more detail in the Citrin side of things, right? I know it's one of those hot topics people want to know about. People want to understand what's going on and somewhat of a future outlook. So really appreciate the time, David. And And again, thanks everyone for listening to Business Beyond Borders, and we'll see you again soon. Cheers, David.
Yeah. Thanks, Laurence. Good talking to you.
Thank you for tuning in to Business Beyond Borders. I'm Laurence Whittam, and it's been a pleasure bringing you impactful insights tailored for the modern CPA firm. Remember, the world of accounting is vast and ever evolving, and we're here to navigate it together. For more resources and episodes, don't forget to subscribe and reach out to our experts. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of your business and explore the limitless possibilities beyond borders.